Howdy everyone, and welcome to the Movo TX Gear Review channel today. So in this chapter we are going to review my GeerTop 2-person 4-season backpacking tent that I've had for the past 18 months or so. For me, 4-season backpacking and camping really means lower elevation California winters, and that is below 4,000 feet elevation, temperatures dropping into the low 30s, and heavy wind and rain and hailstorm conditions. So I've had all these tents out, particularly this one, in rainstorms as heavy as 3 to 4 inches overnight. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's enough rainwater to percolate up through the ground and saturate through your tent floor. Okay, so I've had these in wind conditions severe enough to break off oak tree branches and of course redwood tree branches off in the distance as well. Now, of course, under tree canopy, those conditions are severely diminished, but still, it's pockets of swirling turbulent air basically blowing on your tent and your shelter. I don't have any snow loading or snow capability data points in this review. Okay, so if you want to really get a stronger impression how this tent handles snow loading, go surf on over to the other guys' channels that are doing that type of thing. Give them the thumbs up as opposed to me. But for me, this is lower elevation California wind, rain, and hailstorm conditions. Okay? So, I've got the tent packed up here, and this is pretty much how it comes out of the box. I've had this for about 18 months. I am a purchasing consumer. This is not a free review sample, and I'm not affiliated with any manufacturer whatsoever. I'm getting no compensation or kickback at all for posting this video. It simply is my impressions and my honest opinion about the product, okay? So this is the tent, the Rainfly, and I've also added a Blue Outdoor Products Tarp Footprint. Okay, so I always pack out a tarp footprint with all these tents. For me, tarp plastic is like duct tape, it's like bank line, paracord. There's a million uses for it out in the field. And it also serves as another layer of redundant backup in case you puncture a Rainfly, if you blow out a stitch in your Rainfly or your tent floor or something like that, and you need additional weatherproofing capabilities. That's what tarp plastic is for me. Okay, so that's the soft materials. These are the aluminum poles and spikes, and let's just go set things up here. You're on the headband here on my not GoPro, my Sony action cam. So I apologize if this is kind of shaky. I promise you I'm not that shaky, I'm not that twitchy naturally, but that might appear to be the case here. So I'm going to set up the poles first, simply because I think it's easier that way. And the other thing too is you got to think too, if it's windy or if it's raining and you're in a downpour, you want to try and keep all your gear dry as you can. Okay, so I'm setting up my tent poles first because I simply really don't care if they get wet or muddy or anything like that. Okay, so this kit comes with 3 aluminum poles, and 2 of those are longer than the third one, and the 2 long ones form the arch over dome structure, and the shorter third one forms the vestibule area and the doorway. Okay, as you can see here, so as I'm setting these up, you can imagine heavy rainfall conditions, and I might be in a hurry to get this set up and try and keep my gear as dry as possible, because you got to think too, all the stuff over here is going to get soaked and saturated. Now I have a separate REI Rainfly or rain cover for my pack that'll help me in that scenario too, okay? So the other thing too is I've got you guys mounted here on the headband camera, and you're getting kind of a fisheye optic effect here. So these poles might appear curved or arched in the video, but in actuality they're actually straight. Now some of these they've kind of bent them a little bit and they've developed a kind of warpage to them, but for the most part they're basically straight. Okay, so there's my poles. Let's see, the next step I want to do is bust out the tarp footprint. Now, the stuff sack is either urethane or silicone PU treated, and it actually does a pretty good job of keeping things dry in my pack, once my Rainfly is all soaked. But these clips have been a problem. So these buckles, they simply don't really bite onto the webbing very well. So what I had to do is flip them over, okay, and that creates the friction and the tension and the pull geometry necessary to keep this all tight. So the other thing too is when you unhook them, you can lose these very easily. They simply fall off the end here. There's not a whole lot of retention here at the very end. They should have doubled this stitch up one more perhaps to really retain these. So you have to be careful with that. So when I unbuckle these, okay, I kind of make sure, even if I'm in a hurry, okay, I have to kind of make sure that I keep track of these. Okay, so I'll actually set the bag down, okay, and pull out my Outdoor Products blue rain tarp. Okay, so there's lots of different types of tarp plastic you can use for this. I'm using the Outdoor Products brand. You can buy this at Orchard Supply Hardware. REI also sells it, maybe Walmart as well. Okay, but I find it's lightweight and it folds down pretty compact, as you saw there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this tent up facing kind of this way, just like that. And you know what? I'll move it back a bit. Let's move back a bit here. There we go. So my doorway is facing this way, and we're good. Okay, so there's the poles. There's the footprint. Let's bust out the Rainfly. So I'm doing this real time too. Okay, so I've had this tent out on about a dozen campouts now. I strongly encourage you to take the time and set it up in your backyard or your garage, or like I'm doing out at a park, just so you can best familiarize yourself with it. Okay, because there's definitely a learning curve to all these tents. Okay, there we go. So there's the Rainfly. And let's insert the first long pole. Long pole in the tent. There we go. Oh, I got the wrong one. I made a mistake right there already. So this is what I'm talking about. So these two insertion points, these two sleeves, are actually very close together. You're going to want to do the diagonal one. Make sure you're grabbing the diagonal one. Now, as easy as that is, here in perfect camping conditions, when it's raining, or you're in a hailstorm or something like that, it may not be that obvious. So you're going to want to, A, like I said earlier, A, train yourself, and B, best familiarize yourself with the intricacies of that. Okay, I might actually identify this, like with a Sharpie pen or something. I, tag each one of these so I don't make that mistake again. Okay, got to be careful. So one nice thing about this tent is these nylon mesh sleeves are very, very slick and very slippery, even in wet, rainy conditions. I've never had any problems with sticking and sliding these poles in and out. So it's very, very easy to slide into and out of these sleeves. Okay, so here's the last one. I've actually introduced a little bit of a bend here. I didn't even know it. Okay, be careful with that. So this last one here is for the arch doorway. Okay, and it gets kind of hairy here in a minute once I start to pull this taut. But just trust me, this is what we're doing here. It's going to work. It'll all work out, okay? So let's find the eyelet. That's the door. Oh, no, there it is. Okay, so there's one. Let's find the other corner. Here's the other. Just like that. Okay. And it's going to get kind of hairy here. It's going to look kind of awkward, but just bear with me. Okay, as we stretch this out. There you go. There's one. Okay, so those sides are all set up. So let's arch this first one over as best we can. Okay, it's going to be pretty tight, so give it some elbow grease, okay, and get everything to go together. Okay, so just be careful with it. Okay, make sure you're not snagging anything. Get your poles to slide through and hook up. Okay, keep an eye out too. Be very observant while you do this. Okay, if it looks like anything's catching or snagging, okay, then you're going to want to pull back. Okay, I think this one actually came out on the other end, so let's do this end here. Okay. Okay, there's one. And let's do the other one. Okay, so there we go. There's the basic dome structure of our tent. And what I now need to do is go and stake out the corners and the guy lines. So here's the aluminum tent spikes. They're kind of dirty. I haven't cleaned them off very well, as you can see. Load them up in my pocket here. So here's one little trick that I do. Since I don't have a hammer or a mallet, I'll take my other tent. I'll take one of the other spikes. Just push it nice in like that. Okay, so there's one. Sorry about the sirens off in the background. So we're not that far out of civilization right now. So there's the other one. Here's the last one. A lot of rocks here too, so just be patient with it. And let's do one more here. Okay, so this tent, one of the drawbacks to this tent is it doesn't have a whole lot of ventilation, natural ventilation. So you want to make sure you stake down as decently as you can, and you also want to try and give it some airflow, some airflow here underneath the Rainfly. So that's very important, to try and keep down condensation. Okay, the footprint's a little bit shifted, so I'll pull that back in a minute. There you go. That one went in way too easily, but oh well. Okay, so let's pull the Rainfly out a little bit this way, or the footprint out this way a bit. Okay, so it's important that you don't have your footprint extend out from under your Rainfly. You want the rain to sheet off down the fly and not puddle up on your footprint. So there's one leg of my door. And here's the other. Wow, those sirens are screeching. I'm sorry about that, guys. Not the best backdrop here for the audio, but oh well. There we go. Okay, got that one in. I'm going to redo this one so it's out a bit more. So one thing about this tent is these hook points are fairly sharp. Okay, so you don't want to grab onto that and pull it out, otherwise you'll puncture your hand, you'll cut your hand. Been there, done that. Lesson learned. So there is the Rainfly structure with the door coming out this way. A pair of doors here. Here's the first one. Okay, and I usually tuck this aside, kind of pull it aside this way. Okay, and here's the other door. Okay, there we go. Just like that, okay? Okay, now, so some of you might be thinking, hey, this could be a semi-light tarp-ish tent structure, and that's absolutely true. Okay, I could actually just leave this like, now these straps are kind of annoying. They totally get in the way, so I'm not sure if I'd want to do that really, but if I wanted to, I could actually unroll my sleep pad and my sleeping bag and just camp out here just like this. Maybe in a summer condition here where I really don't need that tent inner wall or anything like that. But nonetheless, it's an option for you at this point. So the other thing I want to do is add the guy lines. So for some reason or other, I took the guy line. Oh, I had to dry them out. Yeah, so let me add the guy lines here. Okay, so here are the guy lines, and I'm gonna stash them in my pocket for now. There we go. Should have done this ahead of time, but oh well. It is what it is. So here's one guy line. So there we go, I got the guy lines all attached. Okay, let's stake these out as well. So I don't always stake the guy lines out, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I will here today. There we go. Okay, so there we are with the guy lines and everything. So at this point, it's fairly freestanding. Okay, it's pretty rigid, fairly freestanding, and I don't even have the guy lines pulled very tight at all. So in heavy wind gusts, this face here can take a full load of wind and blow inward against the tent inner walls. Okay, so you want to make sure things are reasonably tight and pulled out reasonably taut. Okay, there's one. And one more over on this side. And there we go. Okay, so there's our two doorways, and we're all set. On to phase two. Okay, so this is just the Rainfly. Setting up this tent, if you've noticed, is kind of backwards. In other words, you build it kind of outside in. So you build the dome structure of the Rainfly first, and then you build up the inner walls. So let's go inside and do that right now. Okay, so this is my tent inner wall and Nozium mesh, or whatever you want to call it. It comes with this rainbowish or this multicolored strap, so that way you don't lose it. And I've got it bundled down pretty tight here. Okay, so let's crawl in here. All right, there we go. Let's unroll this, get this all set up. Here's my doorway. All right, here we go. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is crawl on in here and hook up these two corner points right here. There's one there, and here's the other one here, just like that. And what you need to do now is hook up and suspend the tent inner wall. So right away, I'm not sure if this is coming across on the video or not, but the severe yellow-orange coloration of the Rainfly. And that's actually kind of a good thing from a visibility standpoint. You can see your tent. But the negative side of that is it kind of messes with your vision. and if your eyes are sensitive to color spectrum, red and green and that kind of thing, it can kind of mess up your vision, okay? Oh, one thing, manufacturing defect right here. You saw me skip this, so they made a mistake on this eyelet right here because I can't hook it. So I've been meaning to replace this with just something that I can shove in there, but it's not really necessary. I should have returned the tent, but I was down to the last couple days before one of my backpacking trips, and I didn't have time to return it. So anyways, it's not that big of a deal, but keep that in mind. If you purchase this tent, kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb here. Oops, did I miss one? Yeah, I did. There we go. There's the other one. So this is not an easy-ish tent to set up. Okay, so there are other tents that install and set up much, much faster than this, as you can probably tell from the video. But I think given the price and the capability here, I think you're getting a lot for your money here. Okay, so oops. Okay, let's anchor these final corners. There's one. And here's the last one. And we're good. Okay, so there we go. Here's our door. Let's tighten up the door. Okay, and here's the bug mesh door on the outside if you want to use that. Just like that. Alrighty, so there we are. We're all set up now, and let's just give you guys an overall walk around. Okay. There's my one door. I'll usually pick one door or the other and use that as my primary, depending on where I'm situated and how I have my tent set up. Okay, so one thing right away that I think you guys should be conscious of is there's not a whole lot of ventilation on this tent. And I talked about it earlier during my setup here, but there just isn't a whole lot of ventilation. So if you're like camping on a tree line or something like that, or a ridge line, and you observe airflow in one particular direction, maybe set up your door facing that direction so you get some inflowing air to circulate and to ventilate here. The only spots for ventilation are these tiny little vents up on top here. So you're probably going to have quite a bit of condensation in this tent on the inner walls. Now that hasn't been a big problem for me, simply because in a single man application, I'm just not generating that much moisture overnight. Okay, so, and I try to keep everything taut and fairly tight so I don't get too many drip points coming down inside the tent. One nice touch for GeerTop in general is they put reflective ribbon around a lot of their tents. I'm not sure how common of a practice this is, but late at night when I go off to take a pee or whatever, it's very, very easy to spot my tent with just a little bit of flashlight illumination from my headlamp or whatever I've got. So, the other thing you're noticing here, if you're some sharper viewers there, is I've gone and seam sealed all the stitching around my Rainfly. Now there's a lot of stitch points on this Rainfly, okay, but this is, you can buy pre-made seam sealer from like REI or Amazon or places like that. I think it's urethane based. I went ahead and made my own silicone based seam sealer for all the stitches and all the seams around this Rainfly. And I'm glad I did that, simply because I haven't had any problems with rainwater leaking through my tent. Okay, so let's bust out the tape measure and give you guys some overall dimensions here on the inside. Okay, so it's a pretty small doorway as you're seeing me crouch down in here. Okay, so I mean, once you're in here, it's fairly roomy, at least for a single man application. Now, I wouldn't want to put two people in here frankly. It's just not big enough, I don't believe, for 2 people. Now, if you're 2 maybe smaller people, 2 smaller individuals, perhaps, but for me and myself, let's give you guys some overall dimensions here. Okay. So from one end to the other, we've got that's about 80 inches, 79, 80 inches going that way, and going across, not too wide here, we're about 43 inches. About 43 inches, maybe 44 inches across the width here. So the other thing too is this nylon here, it's semi-breathable, not terribly breathable. It's not PU coated at all, but it's semi-breathable. And so some moisture and condensation will vent through here, but not really a whole lot. So these sidewalls get pretty much soaked in really cold conditions, even with just a single person in here. Okay, so there's some nice gear pockets here on the side. There's a gear loft up here, a headlamp hang or a lantern hang up here that you can kind of go through here like this. So I use that all the time. This is great. Okay, and I just leave this hooked on. I don't even unhook this. This just stays up here with the tent inner wall. Okay, so let's give you guys a view here with the mesh. This is how I mostly use the tent inner wall, just like that. In fact, I'll leave this mesh wall just like that with a corner open to get some ventilation and some cross flow going there. Okay, so that's pretty much it here. I've had this tent now for 18 months. I've had it on at least almost a dozen campouts, backpacking trips, car camp trips. It's a highly capable, fairly large shelter for a single man application. I can easily stow all my gear inside there. I usually keep my boots, and maybe I'll keep my pack out here. Here's the vestibule area. Oh, you guys wanna, let's see. So the vestibule area is about 3 feet. It's about 3 feet extending. So I've got about a good 3 feet going out this way. And as you saw, it kind of comes out to a taper about, 47 inches or so this way. Okay? So that's pretty much it here. For $178 that I paid on Amazon.com, not bad. Not bad, actually. Got a highly capable, highly flexible, multi-use, multi-application, multi-use tent setup here that, hey, I think you guys can benefit from. So anyhow, thanks a lot, guys, for tuning into the channel. If you have any comments or further questions, please post them down below, and I'll try to respond to all of them as I get the time, okay? I'll catch you guys later. Remember, everybody, stay safe out there. Enjoy the outdoors.